Welcome to the summit. What is the wisdom of silence? And I can now introduce you to Anna Yusim. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Susan. It is a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you for being here. And you're a psychotherapist. You studied at Yale and Stanford, and you're also an author. And we're going to be talking about your book that I have right here. And it's Fulfilled, and how the science of spirituality can help you live a happier and fulfilled life. So I love your book. It goes into many different aspects, like the ego, the conditioned self, and how to include that in your life and dissolve or like in all the stories and the false that is not really you, to look through that. And you also go into the whole science of the spirituality, like all the science about consciousness, the interconnectedness we are. So it's a nice combination, and how it all fits in as a nice puzzle, you could say. So the wisdom of silence, that deeper aspect of us, the heart, the source, and consciousness. Yeah, what is that like in your search in your life? How did you come to that? Because you were feeling something was missing in your life, and through your studies you got the job you wanted, but still it was like you were missing something. You were not fulfilled, and then you looked into spirituality like Kabbalah, Buddhism, Indian gurus, shamanism, and you did an inward search, you could say, an inward journey, and there you found this happier, more fulfilled way of living. So
Yes, Susan. And I think I love the subject of your forum, of your workshop, and thank you for having me here. And yes, indeed, I think it's just like you said. So many of us are always looking outside of ourselves for the answers to our questions, for our fulfillment, for that which brings us peace, joy, happiness, which makes us feel, worthy, which makes us feel lovable. We look for that outside. And we look for that in other people, in achievements, in certain kinds of experiences, in material possessions or material wealth. And yes, all of those things can temporarily bring us joy, but actually joy is something that precedes those things. You don't need these things to have joy. And actually, if you look within, you can find the joy there first. And that informs the way in which you go about finding all the other things outside of yourself. If you find that joy within, which is what you're talking about, within the silence, within your own heart, this is that which exists within that precedes all the other things that we want. It's that state of beingness that we can inhabit once we go into our heart and are able to just be there and be still with ourselves, with our emotions, with our thoughts, with whatever is coming up within us. And sometimes the things that come up within us are actually very difficult for us to palate, because we've all had traumas and micro traumas, difficult crises, emotional experiences that we need to process. And in order then to get past that and return to that state of stillness and silence, as you talk about, you have to do a lot of processing. You have to do a lot of letting go, of surrendering, of abandoning in a way and letting go of the difficult emotions that want to stay present within you in order to create space for that which is your birthright, which is joy, which is peace, which is that which precedes all that came after it. When we are all born, we're born as perfect human beings with a divine soul. And within that, there is deep silence, there's deep wisdom. And then life happens. And on top of our perfection is this overlay of experiences, pain, trauma, micro trauma. And we spend our life essentially returning back to ourselves, which is returning back to the silence, the stillness, the wholeness, and the completion, which is really who we are at the core.
Yeah. So it's actually just recognizing what we already are, and we are already fulfilled. So it's it's letting go of all that, the more outward going mind, and say, okay, I am already full as it is, and I'll know that for myself and rest in that and act and live life as that.
Exactly. And that also takes the burden off, because we're so busy doing, we're so busy trying to find, to fill voids, to, do whatever we think is going to enable us to be successful by somebody else's constructed standards. And we end up, in a way, betraying ourselves, being inauthentic, not being honest with ourselves and those around us, because we don't really even know what honesty is. Honesty is looking deep within and asking, what do I most deeply want at the soul level? Not what does, my brain want, or even what does my heart want. It's really, what does my soul want? It's the deepest wanting. There's so many different faculties within us that enable us to know what we know. And the most powerful is the soul. And the voice of the soul is intuition. But you can only hear that still, quiet voice of intuition when the voice of your thoughts, which could be very loud and demanding, and the voice of your emotions, which could be equally loud, temporarily cease to be. And underneath is that stillness and silence that you speak of.
Yeah. So it's like tuning into that, or really learn to listen to that and follow that guidance.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the consciousness, and how everything is interconnected. You write a little bit about synchronicity, and there's different like remote sensing or telepathy, or there's different dreams, all the unconscious. It's all interconnected, but it's just not visible to the eye. So that's why we just kind of neglect that.
So as inside, so outside, as above, so below, right? So as you cultivate within yourself a sense of just divine presence and stillness, when you're really in touch with yourself and you've kind of elevated your own vibrational frequency, or just your own state of being, the outside world begins to mimic that. And that which you most deeply want in your heart at the soul level begins to come up in your life and all around you. And it's really magical, and it's really powerful how that happens. And that's where these synchronicities occur. A synchronicity is a meaningful coincidence. And it's a term coined by Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung to refer to two things that happen that don't cause one another, but are nevertheless very meaningfully connected. Such as, I think about somebody and then they call me the next day. Probably my thinking about them didn't make them call me, but the fact that I thought about them and then they call me is, to me, could be meaningful. And so that's what a synchronicity is. That's just one of many examples. And when synchronicities come into your life, and when there is many powerful synchronicities in close succession, it's the universe saying to you, you're going in the right direction, keep going. Now, if there's negative synchronicities, like you're trying everything, nothing's working out, you keep, like banging on a door and it is not opening no matter what you do. Yes, sometimes perseverance is important, but sometimes in life, it could also be the universe saying, you know what, you're going the wrong way. You have to change the way you're looking at something. You have to change the way you're doing something. And so synchronicities are actually very powerful markers of how we're living, and very powerful sources of guidance in the world. But of course, it's not the end all be all. It's not the only source of guidance. So you have to integrate the knowledge that you get from synchronicity and from the universe with your own intuition, and of course with your logic and rationality as well.
Yeah, so it's like including it all, like you could say all the voices, the inner voices, the outer voice, like included, because if we are all interconnected, then it's also like there is actually no separate self, because it's all interlinked with everything else. So how can there be, if anything, there's just one self looking or showing up like this world. So yeah, I can see that with this interconnectedness, is whatever happens in life, it's real, because it's showing up as this, and if it's showing up as this world and this life, then obviously it's happening, and it's I can pay attention to everything. I can be present to everything. And I am actually present to everything anyways, right? So it's, in a way, it's also very simple. Like, you can just be who you are because it's already full as it is. You may not know it, but you are already full, and it's already, in a way, you're being done because it's all interconnected. So you're being done by everything that happens to you. And it's like, there's not somebody in here actually doing it. I'm just part of what's happening, in a way.
It's kind of this amazing thing, especially when you see little miracles unfold in your life to create events. Like, I've been having a lot of these lately in my life, and it's just little miraculous things that happen one after the other. And you're like, wow, whatever is orchestrating this couldn't make it any more perfect. And then you're like, if I had planned it, I don't think I could make it this perfect. And you see that there's like a larger hand guiding your life, that it's not just you. But what you do have to do is, just like you said, Susan, you have to be present. It's really easy not to be present. Being present means being with what is, meaning disconnecting yourself from your mind, because our minds could actually like take us away and alienate us from presence. We can be so in our mind and in our expectations of what we expect the universe to be and how we expect things to unfold, that we actually miss what actually is unfolding and how things are, being. And it's just this amazing thing that if you can step back into presence, which is being in your body, in your heart, in your breath, then things start to slow down a little bit. But then you're able to see the miracles of things unfolding in majestic, beautiful ways. And it's often like, for the synchronicities that have been happening in my life, it's like these little things. You have to listen to that little voice and trust your hunches. The hunches are very gentle, and they're little like nudges in a certain direction. And it's like, yeah, go here, go here. You could say, no, I don't want to do that. Your mind can override it. But the voice of intuition is still and quiet. Often that voice needs to be heeded in order for little miracles to begin to happen. So listen to that still voice. Don't disregard that. Moreover, what you might want to be a little bit more cautious of is the thoughts, the loud pressing thoughts. It has to be this way. It has to be that way. That could actually guide you in the wrong direction. Intuition, when you're in touch with it, usually will guide you in the right direction.
Yeah, and it usually, if we are really honest and authentic with ourselves, and we really listen to ourselves, we also know what is the right thing to do in this moment and this situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. The answer to a lot of life's most difficult questions, especially the really big questions. What are you supposed to do with your life? What's your purpose? And should you marry this person? Should you be with this person? The answers to those questions don't lie in reason. And when you use reason to answer those questions, yes, you'll get an answer, but it might not be the right answer in the long term. You really have to go into your heart and soul and into your intuition and really connect with the deepest part of yourself to get answers to the most important questions in life.
And I think also, the more you do that, the more authentic and the truth you listen to in yourself, the more you do that, the more automatic that becomes too. So in the end, you just automatically live from that space, and you don't get lost in all these, sometimes the world seems, or people around you seems to convince you of doing something. And no, you automatically live from that space, because you just know this is life living through me as this, and I don't have to always listen to everybody else, and yeah, because it can be confusing, right? But I think as you do it, live authentically, this heart silence, then automatically you just do it. You don't even have to remind yourself anymore.
Absolutely. And that's also, like, what you're saying is part of that living in stillness and silence, really, in living from your heart and from your soul, is getting out of your own way. We can get in our own way so often. And we get in our own way by trying to control everything and trying to control how our life unfolds, trying to hold on to attachments that are no longer serving us, holding on to ideas of how we need to be that are no longer serving us. So it really begins with authenticity, with trusting yourself and being honest with yourself and being honest with others. And from that space, you can begin to get out of your own way.
And then also in life, a lot of times it's challenging. We don't know how to deal with some challenges. Sometimes it's just too unbearable. Losses in life, and the biggest losses of death or the terminal illness, or just losing everything you own, maybe end up on the street, or there can be so many different losses in life. And it can seem like, wait, what's the synchronicity about this? Or what's the miracle about this? So life is not just all beautiful and wonderful and easy, right?
No, exactly. And in my life, the dark nights of my soul have been those that propelled me onto my next level. And that's also just the most important thing to know. Life is such that, if you don't have pain and darkness, yes, of course, we want to work towards transformation through joy, not pain. But pain and darkness is also so defining. And despite our best efforts, it's often something that, unless we're a guru, it's hard to avoid. We can respond to pain and darkness with equanimity, with neutrality, with looking to learn. But we all will have loss. We all will encounter death. We all are going to have heartbreak. It's just like the natural part of life. And those experiences transform us. But they also move us on to the next level of our consciousness. They also take us to places that without them we wouldn't have otherwise gotten. They open portals within us. They help us to know parts of ourselves that we didn't know before. And then they increase our compassion, our ability to overcome the difficulties in life, our capacity to hold negative and difficult emotions, and then also our, empathy for the suffering of others. Those are very important things that we as human beings need to develop also over the course of this life.
Yeah. It's like it's deepening your capacity, you could say, to hold all of life.
Exactly.
Yeah. So also consciousness, or the bigger picture of life. It's so grand, and there is so much we don't know about it. There's a lot of unknown. And does that unknown seem to be more like becoming more known as you do include everything, including yourself and the inward journey? And like, what was your experience?
Yeah, so I don't think that the goal is to make the unknown more known, because that comes from our desire to control. I think actually it's making ourselves more comfortable with the unknown, and to realize that it's within the unknown, that's where the point of possibility lies. The unknown is the point of infinite possibility. From there, if you could, reach that space of limitless potential, or the 0 point field, anything can be. You create your reality. That is the point that you want to be in. It's that, some people call it just pure awareness. And you want to go beyond the space where we have all of our attachments, even including our attachment to our identity, our name, our profession, our gender, our whatever, to like touch that 0 point field and recognize from there anything is possible. And that's the point from which we create and co-create.
Yeah. And oftentimes it seems like things happens, and then the mind comes afterwards and comment on what's happening. Like sometimes I'm also feeling like, okay, maybe there is no free will really. It's like, I think I'm making a lot of choices here, but I'm in actuality I'm not. I already made the decision before my mind said, oh, I'm gonna do this. Something in my body mind already made the decision. Right? There's also been done some research on that, and some science on that, and it also shows that it seems like before we even know we make a decision, is already made.
Definitely. So yeah, we think that we're rational beings making rational decisions in life. That's not at all what the data shows, just like you said. We're actually deeply intuitive beings making decisions more at the gut level, and then we use reason to retrospectively rationalize why we're doing what we're doing. So we got it all wrong. It's so interesting though, because we think that it's one way, but that's also a metaphor for how so many things work in the universe, right? We think we're doing things one way. We think that things are very linear, but actually no, the universe works in a very, very different way. And it's like releasing our attachment to the way that we think things are actually enables us to see the way things really are.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like, wow, it seems like there is really, you know, this person here that's making all these choices throughout life and can regret choices, or, but it's like, wait, I'm not actually really in charge. It's something else. It's like you could say the God or source or consciousness or presence or awareness, whatever we call it, that's actually running the whole show.
Yeah.
And we just get to be part of it, or like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much. What's your website so people can
Sure. My website, it's just my name, annayusim.com. And thank you again, Susan, for having me. I wish you the best with what you're putting out into this world. And thank you for all that you do.
Yeah, and thank you also for participating in the summit. And yeah, I wish you the best too. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah.